Welcome to my cellar. Several things to talk about. Don't know how much I have to say about each one, but we'll see. I never know how long these things are going to run, because I never know how windy I'm likely to get or how off topic or distracted. Well, we'll give it a shot. All right. Oh, yeah, we were talking about dice and WotC. Still have my set of red game science dice I ordered soon after watching a demonstration video by WotC. Even though I still have to periodically remark the sides, they're my go-to dice. Have been for over a decade. And you know why you have to remark those? Because the plumber's crayon is dried up and falling out. Isn't it funny the way we have favorite dice or favorite colors of dice? I know that when I'm running a Wheel of Blame, I use a certain set of dice that are all either red or black. I just like the looks I see on the faces. I start taking all these black dice out of my bag prior to setting up the game. And I think the 7 or 8 four-siders are what freak them out the most. But we develop a favorite set. Once the imperfect dice were all removed from the game in one fashion or another. Superstition, yeah. Don't touch my dice. I don't name my dice like some of the characters in Knights of the Dinner Table. And I don't have let's see, it's going to be an important role. I think I need this one. But I do have my favorites, and I'll just reach in and take one of the ones the size I need, and I'll roll it. But yeah, dice are funny. Don't touch my dice. Now, you know, it all comes down to dice lice, which is something I think I wrote about way back when. Little microscopic creatures that live in the pips of your dice. And if you keep them happy, they'll be in the right pips to make sure you get the number you want. And if they aren't, well, there's the thing. And that's why they make things like a dice jail. When one of your dice is acting up, you put them in dice jail for a while, solitary confinement. Now, back before the better dice were out, I can remember people melting them with a butane lighter, melting them with a little Bernzomatic torch, smashing them with a hammer. We tend to take out our frustrations on the little inanimate objects, the little platonic forms that we use, and we beat them up. When deep down we know it's not their fault. But why do we get so upset if we can't find one of our favorite dice? I have a couple of favorite dice here. I'll share them with you. I have 2 green jade dice that Cheryl bought for me. Oh, Lord, must be 35 years ago. They have gold in the pips. And she got those out of a Brooks Brothers catalog. Now, for those who don't know, aren't familiar with that, Brooks Brothers used to sell high-end men's clothing. And then I have this one, the original die from my original campaign at Carbondale, the one that had the 6 cryptic symbols carved in it that I did with a fine-pointed stylus. And they all had cryptic meanings in my campaign, or they had cryptic meanings, and it all involved what side was up when it was put into a certain place and what would happen. And then I have these 3 that are not quite perfect in their sizing relative to each other. Sorry, I have to get this other one out here. And they're not very perfect. But what I love about them is they're jade, and all the pips are inlaid with semi-precious materials. And they were all made in Peru. And I acquired these from a good friend in a swap for dice. And I don't use them. I just like to look at them. And then I have an 8-sider up here that did an enormous amount of damage on the second Tower of Gygax at Gen Con. That 8-sider killed over 30 people in 90 minutes. Of course, that was the purpose of the Tower of Gygax, is to go in and die valiantly, and don't expect to come out. But you know, it's funny. We get dice. I don't even use these. I have some of those rare dice that they were selling in the black envelopes. The Asarak's Treasure, and I guess there's some fairly uncommon ones. I don't even use them. All right, let's get out of dice. Like we could ever get out of dice. Because of your early recommendations, Heights and Nichols' books are absolutely fantastic. Great, that's the Orcs and the Dwarves I talked about last week. Thank you. Now to find the Cummings books. Well, you can look up Hans Cummings. He has a website, and you can look him up that way. And like I said, he's got several really, I think, are really good books that I think have a lot of usefulness as well as entertainment for role players, particularly DMs. On the question, what book or piece of memorabilia do you no longer have that you wish you did? Yeah, heresy aside, the books I had, I sold at whatever period of time I sold them at for whatever amount of money I felt was sufficient. I don't have a lot of sentimental value attached to a given book. So that doesn't bother me. I don't really know that there's a piece of memorabilia that I used to have that I wish I still did. I tell you what, I've got a piece of memorabilia that I've had since the first week we moved into the house after getting out of Gary's basement, and that is 4 white metal Vikings, all named from the sagas, a little stone at their feet, that were the original giant figures used in Greyhawk. Gary gave them to me. I have those and don't intend to get rid of them. I can't really think of anything that slipped through my hands that I wish I... Yeah, one thing. I wish I had my original Titan game. Now, I wish I had it. I have the other one, the Avalon Hill version, but it's just not as cool as the original. On Dice, I just reviewed the Kickstarter page for Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program, where one of their add-ons is a set of bone white dice with white crayon. I guess this is the dice set the DM hands to that one player whose PC landed up in limbo. What are the craziest dice you've ever come across? There are some metal dice I have seen over the years that are just absolutely evil in all their little pokes and points and spines and ridges. The last thing you would want to do with some of those is roll them on any surface that wasn't covered in felt or the bed of a pool table. Certainly nothing on any kind of wood furniture, or nothing, because they would just mar them. They're terribly heavy. I have a couple of sets around here that I've been given over the years, and while they're an interesting, they're beautiful to look at, I don't see them practical at all. Certainly nothing you'd roll around in your hands and pierce yourself 7 times with the points. One of the neatest wasn't really a die, pardon me, singular, was an object that came out while I was still doing dragon called the Dragon Bone. It was about that big and covered with lights. I don't know if they're LEDs. No, not then. Whatever the cool lights were, the little bitty lights, and it had a timer circuit in it, and so you can set it for D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20, and hit the button, and it'd go around. You hit the button, and it gave you a number, and I thought they were neat because I just had to sit there and play with one thing in my hand, not roll dice, retrieve them, and all that kind of stuff. I know a lot of players didn't take to them because they didn't have the tactile feedback that rolling and play with dice does. It's too bad. And there are still some floating around, and the ones that work are getting. If somebody's trying to sell one, if it still works, they're getting really good prices for them. I thought it was a neat innovation. Not so much weird, it's just a different approach. All right, let's go across. Please do not exert yourself overly, but I would be pleased to learn your opinion of some D&D innovations revealed recently in a video called Fireside Chat 2024 Revised Player's Handbook, wherein WotC, Crawford, Perkins talk about the upcoming Revised Player Handbook and reveal amongst a few other tidbits that psionic subclasses such as Soul Knife and Psy Warrior will appear in the core books. What is it, WotC, that you have to have a frickin' subclass of everything? How much fine-tuning do you need to do? Come on. A soul knife. What's their specialty? Cutting people's ids out, destroying their egos, stealing their memories. Psy Warrior goes out in the front and just sends out blasts of psionic wave power, stunning the minds of the enemy. Come on. Any of those things can be done if the area of expertise has been studied by the person with psionics, or the skill has been learned, if you will. It's been taken to a stupid extreme, in my opinion. But then again, just about everything in 5e has been taken to a stupid extreme, in my opinion. Too many subclasses, too much nitpicking, too many subdivisions. And now they're going to have psionics come out and different kinds. Meh. Unpopular opinion. I prefer the game science dice more than I like the official sets in Holmes, BX, or Beckme. And someone responded to that. That's not an unpopular opinion. That's just a preference for high impact precision random number generators. And that's true. You can't. No company that's putting together a box set is going to put in the absolute best of every component. For instance, top-end dice, because it just jacks the cover price up. We changed producers at least once that I remember, I think, and it was still in Hong Kong, but they made a better quality dice. They had a couple of colors. There were a couple of color differences. They didn't have yellow, but they do had green, or whatever. I wasn't involved in the selecting, but they made better quality, higher impact. Again, it's all relative, and more true in their sizes. Their molds were more precise. They didn't have as many high rollers and low rollers as the earlier dice did. The earlier dice were not being made for what they were being made for. Should have been more precise, because it was all about numbers generation and probabilities and what have you for math teachers. But nobody's going to put the highest quality cards. Nobody's going to. If for instance, I'll take D20 Delving, a game that I'm involved in right now, has 253 cards of different sizes involved with it. It's a board game. And for us to find somebody that could, say, coat them like a bridge card would be, the smaller bridge size cards, playing cards, it would add an inordinate amount to the cost. Remember that a markup is at least 3 and more often 5 to 7 times the production, because you have to allow for discounts if you're doing any distribution. So if it's going to cost an extra $1 to put in those coded cards, it's going to cost you 5, 6, 7 extra bucks because of what it'll do to the box price. Now, books, on the other hand, the high quality books can be done at a decent price. You can get them done in China, or you can do them here in the States. The Lost Adventures, which is, I think it's being mailed out. Maybe as you're listening to this, or within a couple of days, the Kickstarter is finally getting out. We're doing a super high quality stitched hardcover binding on that, and that is reflected in the price. But like the original first 3 advanced books that TSR produced, it will last forever, in relative terms, of course. Yeah, box sets are going to have less expensive dice, unless they make a point of it, and then again, it's factored into the price. It has to be. Nobody who wants to stay in business can give that markup away. Not if they want to stay in business. Ooh, hot rumor I heard. Mutant Crawl Classics is going to be reprinted again? Amazing. Congratulations, if it's true. That's a 5th. That game's got some legs. And if you're looking to get a little change of pace, once again, I recommend at least looking into it. It's amazing. Game's got some legs. Just a few things to comment on. I know it's going to be a short one, probably. As I said earlier, the Lost Adventures book is coming out within days. Now, the thing about... Oh, excuse me. There we go. Lost my monitor for a minute. It's a Kickstarter, and of course the prepaids will be fulfilled first. speaking of Kickstarters, I understand that the one that Old Guard Games did of my Curse of the Weaver Queen is gone. Yeah, I sold the story a long time ago, and no longer own it. But I'm glad if they sold it all. That's wonderful. I know it just came out at GaryCon, so no Kickstarter has a ton of extra copies, but whatever there was apparently is gone. Yay, team. We've had some problems with fulfilling the D20. A person who shall remain nameless, we're 97.5% certain, made anonymous tips to customs that containers that our games and books were in contained contraband. And the first set got ruined by air and water and moisture. They weren't taken care of, and when they went through everything. And the second one is still tied up because the company that printed them in China, the contract was that they would be delivered to our door. Once they would be seen through customs and to our door. It got hung up. They weren't seen through, and now there's big warehouse fees that they refuse to pay, even though they fucked up. So I think that we might print it ourselves. We have the capability. Now let's talk about the keys. My son's a store manager for Home Depot, and used to live in the Dallas area, which made it so much fun when I would go to the cons in Dallas, because I get to see him and his family for at least Sunday. Before I had to fly back on Monday, and he went from that area. He was offered a store in Marathon, Florida, which is on Marathon Key, and they found a gorgeous house, way up on stilts like everything in Florida is, in the middle of a deer preserve. Now the key deer is protected, and they're little bitty buggers. A full-grown one of them looks like about a 6-month-old fawn without the stripes. They're small. They're gorgeous. They got the deer ears. They got the eyes, of course. And as it happened, there were 2 homes built within, well, if you're a crow, about 1/3 of a mile of each other. And because then if you got to drive, it's about a half. And then somebody said, "Oh, there's deer, protect the deer." So they said, "Stop construction. No more homes." Pardon me. No more homes could be built there. The 2 that had been built could stay. And so my son sits on about an acre in the middle of a deer preserve. And he's got about maybe 40 or 50%, I'm not good at judging that kind, of his acre cleared into lawn. And he has 5 palms in his yard in various places, all different species. And he has a koi pond that's about 6 feet by 4 feet wide and about 3 feet deep, that's full of African cichlids who apparently washed in after one of the hurricanes a few years ago. Apparently, I'm guessing a breeding operation somewhere got watered out, and that's where they ended up. And they feed them fish food, and there's hundreds of little fry in there, and no insects will eat them. Um, so amazing. It's all well, they call it a mangrove forest, but it's not a wet mangrove forest. But they're a different type of mangroves. They're short and stubby, and the deer come up and hope that somebody knocked a carrot off the railing of the porch, because you're not supposed to feed them. But it's astonishing. It truly is. If I bought that house, I'd never move again ever anywhere. It's that cool. So good for them, and I hope he enjoys it a long time. We enjoyed visiting. And now I'm going to talk about a PC game. In my opinion, an amazing game. It's called Age of Wonders. It's now in its 4th iteration. It wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for an extraordinarily devoted fan base, because it became an orphan after its 1st or 2nd iteration, and there were websites devoted to this game to talk about it amongst each other and to create, because with the 3rd one you could create maps. What they called maps, we would call a scenario. Create a whole big map that had to be adventured around and what have you. And I always felt that of the ones I played, which was nowhere near all of them, or even half of them probably, I still felt that this had the most D&D-ish feeling in a turn-based strategy game. It was like, okay, you got your 6 or 7 buddies, and they all gang, all these minions, henchmen gang up around your heroes, and they go out and they beat stuff up, and you feed your power to your heroes. They're able to do things because you can do things. Your magic using units can use the magic that you know. You can enchant whole units with various things. It's here today in the 4th iteration that's been out about a year and had several packs. It's on Steam, which I put up with because it's a great game. So if you're looking for something like that, and you can find a sampler or something for a turn-based strategy fantasy game, I highly recommend it. Right now, the game I'm playing in right now, I'm a race of goats. 2-legged goats, erect goats, intelligent goats, and there's, oh Lord, I haven't stopped and counted. Probably 3 dozen character types you can be, your race or your people or whatever, and they all have edges, one over the other, and it's just really, really fantastical in that you have so many options. So if you're looking for turn-based strategy, I really recommend Age of Wonders. Any of them are good. 4th one's dynamite, the graphics and what have you. And with that, I guess I've run out of things to babble about. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Yes, I'm going to get that. Sometime I will put that video together and take you around my basement. It still looks like a bomb went off. I'm still got to get re-energized to finish moving everything around. As you can see, I got books stacked unevenly, and probably some of those aren't even going to end up there, but they're there for now, that kind of thing. I only had a few comments, and that's why the fewer the comments, the shorter the episodes. So hey, I guess I'm at your mercy. And that's being said, having been said, do dada govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
The curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.